It was 2:38 a.m. in the western Pacific, and the ocean at 23 degrees north latitude was doing what deep ocean does at that hour. Nothing visible, nothing audible at the surface. An absolute darkness broken only by the bioluminescent wake of a ship moving at speed through water that has not seen sunlight since before recorded human history. The Philippine Sea, one of the deepest bodies of water on Earth, averaging over 4,000 meters in depth, with the Mariana Trench cutting through its eastern flank at depths that would crush any submarine ever built before it reached the bottom. Deep water, cold water below the thermocline, the kind of ocean that swallows sound in unexpected ways and bends acoustic energy along thermal gradients that have been confounding submarine commanders since the first nuclear boat went to sea in the 1950s. It is, in other words, exactly the kind of ocean where a submarine commander might believe he had a reasonable chance of remaining undetected. The USS Gerald R, Ford CVN-78, the lead ship of the most advanced class of aircraft carrier ever constructed, had been operating in the Philippine Sea for 33 days. Carrier Strike Group 12. The Ford herself was a revolutionary vessel by any objective measure. The first American carrier to incorporate electromagnetic aircraft launch systems, replacing the steam catapults that had defined carrier aviation since World War II. An advanced arrest and gear system, dual-band radar integrating the AN/SPY 3 and AN/SPY 4 arrays into a single coherent air picture, and a reactor plant generating 3 times the electrical power of the Nimitz-class ships she was designed to replace. That power margin was not an accident. It was designed deliberately to support future directed energy weapons, railguns, and sensor systems that the ship's designers knew were coming and wanted headroom to accommodate. The Ford was not just the most capable carrier afloat. She was the most capable carrier that would ever be built for the next 30 years, designed with that future already partially built into her infrastructure. Her strike group included the cruiser USS Leyte Gulf with 122 vertical launch cells, 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, USS Ramage, USS McFall, and USS Farragut, and, running at undisclosed positions within the formation's outer screen, 2 fast attack submarines whose presence was not advertised and whose precise locations within the screen geometry were known only to the strike group commander, the submarine commanders themselves, and the relevant command authorities up the chain. The air wing embarked aboard Ford comprised the full complement of a carrier air wing, F/A-18E and F/A-18F, Super Hornets, EA-18G Growlers, E-2D Advanced Hawkeyes, and the first fully operational complement of F-35C. Lightning, 2 stealth fighters assigned to a deployed carrier air wing, a fact that had been noted with considerable attention in the defense ministries of several nations that prefer not to be named in this context. The Ford's strike group was conducting scheduled operations 340 nautical miles east of the Philippine archipelago. The operations were routine in the sense that carrier strike group operations in the Western Pacific are always routine. A structured series of flight operations, maritime security patrols, and theater presence activities designed to communicate, through the simple fact of being there, that the United States Navy considers the Western Pacific an American operating area. Not exclusively American, not closed to others, but an area where American interests are defined, defended, and capable of being enforced at any moment by 100,000 tons of nuclear-powered carrier aviation. Beijing had been watching the Ford's operations since she entered the Philippine Sea. This was not a surprise to anyone involved. The People's Liberation Army Navy operates a comprehensive network of maritime surveillance assets, satellites, reconnaissance aircraft, surface ships, and submarines, specifically designed to track U.S. carrier strike groups in the Pacific. The tracking was persistent and professional, and the U.S. Navy was fully aware of it, as it has been aware of Chinese surveillance of its Pacific operations for decades. Awareness of being watched is not the same as vulnerability to being watched. The Ford Strike Group knew it was being tracked. It continued its operations without modification, because a carrier strike group that alters its behavior because it is being observed is a carrier strike group that has already conceded something it doesn't need to concede. At 1:15 a.m., the P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft assigned to the strike group's outer ASW, anti-submarine warfare, screen detected an acoustic contact at a range of approximately 65 nautical miles southeast of the Ford's operating area. The contact was classified within 11 minutes by the P-8A's acoustic analysis systems and the shore-based processing support it was linked to. A Plan Type 093 Shang-class nuclear-powered attack submarine, running at approximately 8 knots at a depth consistent with the local thermal layer, on a bearing that placed it on a broad intercept course with the strike group's projected track. The classification confidence was assessed as high. The contact had been in the water long enough to generate a stable acoustic fingerprint, and that fingerprint matched the library of known planned submarine acoustic signatures that the U.S. Navy has been building and refining for 30 years through a combination of deliberate elicitation operations, passive collection, and the intelligence cooperation of allied nations whose own submarine forces have had their own close encounters with Chinese boats. The Type 093 Shang-class is China's frontline nuclear attack submarine. Commissioned beginning in 2006 with improved Block II variants following, the Shang-class represents Beijing's most capable undersea warfare platform currently in operational service. It carries the YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missile, a weapon with an estimated range of 537 kilometers in its land attack variant and approximately 220 kilometers in its anti-ship configuration, along with wake-homing torpedoes and a mine-laying capability. Chinese state media has been enthusiastic about the Shang-class. Multiple official publications have described it as a vessel capable of threatening U.S. carrier groups and fundamentally altering the naval balance of power in the Pacific. What Chinese state media has been considerably less enthusiastic about discussing is the Type 093's noise signature. Submarine warfare is, at its core, an acoustic competition. The quieter submarine wins. The submarine that can hear the other submarine first, that can track without being tracked, that can position for attack without revealing its position. That submarine controls the engagement. Everything else, the weapons, the speed, the depth capability, is secondary to the fundamental question of who hears whom first. On this question, the Type 093 Shang-class and the United States Navy's Fast Attack Submarine Force are not in the same conversation. They are not even in the same building. Acoustic analysts who have reviewed available data on the Shang-class's noise signature compare it, in terms of quieting technology, to approximately where American submarines were in the late 1970s or early 1980s. Before the Walker spy ring delivered critical American quieting technology to the Soviet Union, and before the U.S. Navy spent the subsequent decade rebuilding its acoustic advantage to a level that the Shang-class has not come close to matching 30 years later. The Shang-class is louder than it should be. louder than its designers intended and considerably louder than the crews operating it would prefer. It is loud enough that a P-8A Poseidon with a modern sonobuoy field detected it at 65 nautical miles, classified it with high confidence in 11 minutes, and had its track data on Link 16, and in the Ford's Combat Information Center before the submarine's commanding officer had any reason to suspect he had been found. Let's be precise about what that means tactically. At 1:15 a.m., the planned submarine's crew believed, with reasonable confidence based on the information available to them, that they were conducting a covert approach on a U.S. carrier strike group. They believed their position was unknown. They were maneuvering to close the strike group's track, positioning for a potential engagement envelope that their weapons employment doctrine specified as the basis for a credible anti-ship strike. Their commanding officer was executing a plan, working through a sequence of tactical decisions, operating with the professional competence of a crew that had trained for this mission for months. None of that was inaccurate as a description of what they were doing. What was inaccurate was the assumption underlying all of it, that they were undetected. They had been detected at 1:15 a.m. The P-8A crew had the contact. The data was on Link 16. The strike group's ASW coordinator had the picture. And at 1:26 a.m., the USS Springfield, SSN 761, a Los Angeles-class fast-attack submarine, running her own patrol leg at the southwestern corner of the strike group's ASW screen, received the Type 093's track data from the P-8A's sonobuoy field via the acoustic communication link and began repositioning. The Springfield was 34 nautical miles from the Type 093's reported position. She was already downhill of the Chinese submarine's likely track, positioned by the geometry of the ASW screen in exactly the quadrant that an adversary attempting to approach the Ford from the southeast would have to pass through. The Springfield's commanding officer reviewed the track, computed the intercept geometry, and increased to 12 knots on a closing course. He said nothing that anyone will ever quote in a document that becomes public. He did his job. At 1:47 a.m., the Springfield's own AN/BQQ-10 sonar system acquired the Type 093 on passive broadband. Contact. Own ship solution. The Type 093 was now being tracked by two independent U.S. sensor systems simultaneously. The P-8A's sonobuoy field overhead and the Springfield's hull-mounted sonar. The Chinese submarine's commanding officer still had no indication he had been detected. His own sonar systems were working the water ahead of his track, searching for the strike group surface ships, listening for the noise of carrier flight operations and the machinery signatures of the escorts. What he was not hearing, could not hear, because she was operating at low speed with her systems in the meticulous, ultra-quiet condition that Los Angeles-class crews trained to maintain, was the Springfield sitting in his baffles, the dead zone directly behind a submarine where its own propeller noise masks incoming acoustic energy. The Springfield had found him. He had not found the Springfield. In the language of submarine warfare, that is the entire story. The Ford's strike group ASW coordinator had both tracks on his display at 1:52 a.m. The Type 093 at 34 nautical miles southeast of the Ford, closing at 8 knots. The Springfield trailing the Type 093 at 4 nautical miles, holding contact. The coordinator briefed the Ford's captain at 1:55 a.m. The captain looked at the picture for a moment. He asked one question. What is Springfield's weapons status? He received the answer. He nodded, authorized the continuation of the ASW prosecution, and told the coordinator to keep him updated if the Chinese boat changed behavior. Then he asked for the current air plan status and went back to the broader management of the strike group's operations, because a Chinese submarine at 34 nautical miles, tracked by 2 American systems, trailed by a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine that it cannot detect, is not a crisis. It is a situation. It is being managed. The American response architecture had the situation before it became a situation. At 2:09 a.m., the Type 093 altered course and increased speed. The sonar picture from the Springfield showed an unmistakable signature change. The Chinese submarine had gone to approximately 14 knots and turned to a new heading that tightened its intercept geometry with the forward. The course change was operationally significant. At 14 knots, the Type 093 was significantly louder. Faster submarine speeds generate more flow noise, more propeller cavitation, more radiated acoustic energy. The Springfield's contact went from good to excellent. The P-8A overhead dropped additional sonobuoys to fence the track and confirm the new course and speed. The track data updated on Link 16 across the entire strike group simultaneously. The Chinese submarine's commanding officer had made a decision. He had decided to press the approach. At 14 knots, he was trying to close the engagement range before the strike group moved out of his weapons employment envelope. What he did not know, could not know, because nothing in his passive sonar picture told him, was that the decision to increase speed had made him acoustically brighter by a factor that his own crew's training would have told him was significant, and that the submarine trailing him in the baffles now had a track quality that would support weapons employment with a confidence level that left essentially no room for error. At 2:19 a.m., the Springfield broadcast a narrow beam acoustic signal, a coded transmission, inaudible to the Type 093's passive sonar but received by the P-8A's sonobuoy network, confirming weapons-free authority request. The request went up the chain. The authorization decision was not a simple one. This was international waters. The Type 093 had not fired. It had not achieved a weapons employment position. It had not broadcast any targeting solution. Under the laws of armed conflict and the standing rules of engagement governing U.S. submarine operations in peacetime, the mere presence of a foreign submarine in international waters trailing a carrier strike group was not, by itself, sufficient legal basis for a lethal weapons employment. The American system, for all its tactical capability, operates within a legal and political framework that does not permit killing first and asking questions later, even when killing first is tactically optimal. This is not a weakness of the system. It is a feature. It is what separates the United States Navy from the navies of states that have no comparable constraint. The authorization that came back at 2:24 a.m. was not weapons-free for lethal engagement. It was authority to surface the contact, to force the Type 093 to the surface through a combination of active sonar prosecution, deliberate acoustic harassment, and the communications transmission that U.S. submarine commanders are authorized to use in exactly this situation. A direct acoustic message, broadcast on Chinese naval frequencies, informing the planned submarine's crew that they had been detected, tracked, and were being trailed by an American fast attack submarine, and that continuation of their current approach toward a United States carrier strike group would be treated as a hostile act with all that implied for their continued operational existence. The Springfield went active at 2:27 a.m., an AN/BQQ-10 sonar system in active mode, transmitting at full power from 4 nautical miles directly astern of the target submarine, is not a subtle communication. The acoustic pulse hits the target's hull with enough energy to be felt physically by everyone aboard. The echo return that comes back tells the Springfield everything she needs to know about the target's range, bearing, depth, and speed with a precision that passive sonar, for all its advantages, cannot match. For the crew of the Type 093, the moment the Springfield went active was the moment the entire tactical picture inverted. 1 second, they were conducting a covert approach. The next second, a sonar pulse of American origin was bouncing off their hull from directly astern, and their own sonar operators were reporting a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine at 4 nautical miles, weapons doors conceivably open, with a firing solution that required no additional refinement. The Type 093's commanding officer faced a decision that had exactly one correct answer. He blew his ballast tanks and began his ascent. The Springfield followed him up, maintaining 4 nautical miles of separation, tracking continuously. The P-8A overhead vectored to the Type 093's surfacing position and established visual contact at 2:41 a.m. as the Chinese submarine broke the surface in the pre-dawn darkness of the Philippine Sea, its sail emerging from the black water, navigation lights coming on in the universal maritime acknowledgement that a vessel has surfaced and is operating in a non-threatening mode. The P-8A's camera recorded the surfacing in full high-definition video. The imagery was time-stamped, geo-referenced, and transmitted up the intelligence chain within minutes. The Type 093 sat on the surface for 11 minutes, running on her diesel snorkel to charge batteries and allow her crew to verify their mechanical status after the rapid ascent. Then she dove again and turned northwest toward Chinese territorial waters, at a speed that suggested her commanding officer had concluded that the Philippine Sea had nothing further to offer his career development that morning. The Springfield did not pursue. The P-8A tracked the Type 093 until it passed out of practical surveillance range, logging the entire event in the acoustic library. The track data, the sonobuoy recordings, the Springfield's own sonar logs, and the P-8A's imagery were compiled into an intelligence package that would be analyzed by the relevant commands ashore within 24 hours. Every piece of information the Chinese submarine had involuntarily provided, its noise signature at various speeds, its depth and speed capabilities as demonstrated during the approach and surface transit, its crew's response time to the active sonar alert, its communications patterns, was added to the already extensive American library on planned submarine operations. The Type 093 had spent the night trying to gather intelligence on the Ford strike group. It had instead generated a comprehensive intelligence product about itself, aboard the USS Gerald R. Ford, the captain, was briefed on the conclusion of the ASW prosecution at 2:55 a.m. He acknowledged the report. He noted in the ship's log that the strike group had successfully prosecuted a planned submarine contact and forced it to surface without incident. He authorized a commendation for the Springfield's crew and the P-8A detachment. Then he approved the morning's flight plan and told his watch officer he would be in his quarters for 2 hours before the first launch cycle. The Ford's flight deck came alive at 5 a.m. with the controlled thunder of F/A-18S and F-35CS preparing for the first recovery cycle. The electromagnetic catapults accelerated the first aircraft down the track and into the pre-dawn sky in the way they always do, smoothly, efficiently, without the steam hammer violence of the old system, the future working exactly as designed. Far to the northwest, a planned Type 093 submarine was running for home through deep water, her crew processing what had just happened to them and her commanding officer composing, in his mind, the operational report he would have to file when he returned to Yulin Naval Base on Hainan Island. That report would describe a USASW response that had detected his submarine at a range and a speed that his own training parameters had suggested was not achievable. It would describe being trailed without detection for over an hour. It would describe the moment an American sonar pulse hit his hull from directly astern. He would file the report accurately, because planned operational reporting on ASW encounters with American submarines has, over the past decade, become increasingly candid about the capability gap, as the operational evidence has made candor unavoidable. The gap is real. The gap is wide. And the gap gets wider every year as the U.S. Navy's acoustic technology, ASW doctrine, and sensor integration continue to advance, while the fundamental constraint on Chinese submarine quieting technology, the deep industrial and manufacturing base required to produce the precision bearings, acoustic dampening systems, propulsion quieting measures, and hull construction quality that define a truly quiet nuclear submarine, remains a work in progress that decades of effort have not yet resolved. The Philippine Sea is very deep. It swallows sound in complicated ways. It is not deep enough and complicated enough to hide a Type 093 Shang-class submarine from a P-8A Poseidon with a modern sonobuoy field and a Los Angeles-class fast-attack submarine that has been hunting submarines in exactly this water for 30 years. The geometry is not kind to the plan. The technology is not kind to the plan. The institutional knowledge accumulated across 3 decades of American ASW operations in the Western Pacific is not kind to the plan. What is kind to the plan is the distance from Hainan Island to the Philippine Sea. But distance is not a defense. It is a commute. And the United States Navy is already there when the commute ends. Bye for now.